Hi, everybody. My name's Paul McGee, and I'm the Director of the Centre for Creative and Cultural Research. I'd like to acknowledge that we are on the lands of the Ngunnawal and Ngambri people and that this land is unceded. I'd also like to acknowledge all Aboriginal people present in the room or online. Hitomi Nakanishi is Associate Professor at the University of Canberra. Dr. Nakanishi's research involves using multidisciplinary approaches to examine human behaviours, including travel choices and mobility in perspectives of land use, urban form, and infrastructure planning and disaster management. Her recent research contribution is in the post-disaster area in Japan following the earthquake and tsunami disaster in 2011, where she was invited to bring innovation to the transport planning of devastated areas. Her recent book, Disaster Resilience and Sustainability, Japan's Urban Development and Social Capital, examines urban planning and infrastructure development in Japanese cities after the Second World War, book on display here, as a way to mitigate the risks of disasters while pursuing sustainable development. And I'd also like to say, though it's not part of Hitomi's official biography, that she is also the host of a podcast which discusses literature, including Japanese and Australian literature. So her interests cross over to some of the Centre's other activities as well.
Thank you,
Please join me in welcoming Hitomi.
Thank you so much, Paul, and thank you for having me today. My title is so topic today is disaster management and resilience. But I do also focus on mobility, transport behavior of people. So that's a bit more broader. So I do a bit broader research, but this particular presentation is focusing on how we can manage the risks of disasters. I would also like to acknowledge the Ngao people who are the traditional custodians of this land on which we are meeting, and pay respect to the elders of Ngao Nation, both past and present. I extend this respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples in attendance today. As you are all aware, we have been experiencing the increasing number of disasters recently. So we had the flood is like an annual event now, but in Australia as well. And also, some may remember Queensland floods in 2009, 2010. That was also a very remarkable event in Australian history. And also, as Paul mentioned, I worked in a devastated area after the tsunami and earthquake in 2011 in northeast Japan. And also, we had an earthquake in Christchurch, which I also did some field work, and the place is still recovering. And also, we had earthquake in Kumamoto, where they just had 8 years memorial service in April, and the place is still recovering. And also we had a massive flood in 2018, by which Japan lost more than 220 people. And we shouldn't be forgetting, we had the Black Summer bushfire just before COVID hit across the world. And also, more recently, we had floods in New South Wales and Queensland. Many people lost their houses and loved ones and still suffering. And also, not just about floods and earthquakes, we also have a more increasing number of impact from heat waves or hotter temperature, and which is affecting older people, in particular in European countries. And climate scientists has been warning this for many years, and the heat waves and also drought, flooding, wildfire, bushfire, storms are all associated, and they are becoming more intense. And disaster risk reduction has never been more important under this condition. The IPCC's latest report, which was published last year, was showing more dreadful evidence. We cannot really avoid this globe having hotter temperature in coming years, and also we have more climate-related hazards, and also vulnerable communities who have historically contributed to the least to climate change are disproportionately affected, and this is a significant problem across the world. So this is more the details. So if we have already, we really cannot achieve the 1.5 degree target. Now we are expecting probably plus 2.2 degrees, and this is the implication of what this means to our environment. So we are having hotter days, we are having more more moisture in soil, and also wet, so severe rain falls. This is how the climate change is impacting our globe. And also across the generation, and this is, I think, one of the reasons that many younger people are not having children. People who are born in 1980, so maybe our students' generation, when they get 70 years old, it's going to be very, very hot in everywhere, basically. And people who are born, who are going to arrive, they're gonna be having more impact, dreadful impact when they become older. And as you know, that if you get older, your ability to adjust to the changing temperatures, changing climate, or weather will be deteriorated. So you cannot really cope with the change. And this is also the reason that many older people in summertime are having difficulties when temperature is particularly hot. And so having this as a background, I would like to think this impact on our built environment and how this means to our sort of behavior when we have this flood, we have severe hazards. And before thinking about it, I would like to make it very clear that what is the definition of the disaster resilience, because I use this word a lot. It's ability or skills to collectively act, to use physical and economic resources effectively and collectively to survive. And function is seen as the common definition of disaster resilience. So when we were celebrating the New Year on the first day of January this year, I was in Japan, and there was an earthquake in Japan seaside. We call it Noto earthquake. It happened around 4 p.m. On the 1st of January. So obviously, the 1st of January is for Japanese people, it's sort of celebration time. So many people were with family. I was playing with my nephew and niece on the ground. So I didn't really feel the earthquake, although I was in the Pacific side and I was not directly affected by the earthquake itself, but my brother-in-law who was at home felt the shake even in the Pacific side. So the earthquake power was massive. It was because it was holiday. Many government officials also on holiday. So their first reaction was actually to go to council and check if there's any severe impact on the roads, and also if there's any people who needs rescued. And this happens at in 30 seconds. And NHK, the national news program, started to warn the tsunami was coming. And many people were asked to evacuate to higher ground. This happens in 1 minute. So this is how how resilient, or what is required to be resilient. So people need to collect the information, make an action immediately, and also the government officials need to check everything, and also alert people what they need to do. And in long term, yes, the rescue, after the rescue and relief stopped, then there would be a reconstruction time. And it depends, the time to take for recovery really depends on how high the resilience is in the area. And I wouldn't touch much to this concept because I assume that we are all aware of this. But there's still, among researchers, there's still some overlapping definition, or not really, not perfect agreement in terms of adaptive capacity and resilience. But to me, the adaptive capacity is sort of part of resilience, and adaptive capacity applies to many stakeholders, and including international agencies that may help from overseas. For example, when Japan was hit by the tsunami and earthquake in 2011, many people from internationally, Australia also sent aircraft, and also New Zealand also sent a rescue team to Japan. So this rescue operation in particular tend to be very international operation. So adaptive capacity of other countries to be able to help is also included in this context. But in this, in my study that I present now, is more about the local adaptive capacity. Why community plan? So I connect this resilience to or adaptive capacity to community planning, because community planning needs to embed the disaster risk reduction, and because the purpose of community planning is to reduce the impact as much as possible for the future and enhance preparedness. And this type takes time. So community planning is critical in enhancing resilience, and enhanced preparedness will lower the impact anyway. And also, we need to be very aware of the change of demographic in our world. The world is aging. The left side diagram shows the percentage of population aged over 65 years old. It's becoming more and more. And the right side diagram shows that percentage of population aged 15 to 64 years old, which is significantly declining in the next decades. And this means we have more older people in our society. And this is not just in the developed countries. This is also happening in developing countries. And in Japan, this is already happening. In many rural areas, 30%, around 30% population is over 65 years old. And in some communities, it's already hit 40%. So, this is concerning many officials in terms of disaster resilience, because if you have more older people, evacuation operation will be more challenging. And here's the evidence. At the time of flood in 2018, 90% of victims were older people. And also in a bit more recent flood in 2020, more than 80% of victims were drowned, and mostly older people. So if you have more older people in the community, we have more challenge in saving lives. And this is not a problem evacuation. This is not an individual evacuation ability. This is really about, to me, a community planning. So I show my case study now. The case study area is Takamatsu. I forgot to put the map of Japan locating where Takamatsu is, but Takamatsu is 300 from Osaka, so it's in the western side of Japan, and it's in the Seto Inland area. It's a historically flood-prone city, and the uniqueness of Takamatsu is, so this is the north is this, and this is a castle, and facing with Seto Inland Sea. The castle built facing with ocean is very rare in Japan for the security reason. And this castle was one of 3 castles built in front of the ocean because in Seto Inland Sea, in this particular Takamatsu area, they were managing the logistics of marine logistics of Seto Inland Sea. So that's why the castle is built, and the city center are built in the ocean front. And current city center is also located here, remaining here. And it has been historically a flood-prone city, and also there are many typhoons in the past. So I have I wrote in this table. But as modernization progressed, the Takamatsu has been expanded. And this is the map from 1887. The city center was just in front of the ocean, just not very much. But by the end, after the end of World War, Takamatsu had a lot of bombing, so most of the city center area were burned very significantly. And it's after the World War, Second World War, the reconstruction was made. And then, so the city was expanded. And this is the present map where they constructed a lot of artificially made peninsulas for the industrial zone. And this is making a risk, basically, of typhoon. As I showed in the historical, I showed in the historical map, that it's been a prone area, and the castle was here. And I hope you remember that this area was really flood-prone. And then if you see this diagram, the topography is quite low. And this means that this area tends to collect water when flood happens. Okay, so this means this red colored area. In Takamatsu, 3 typhoons hit significantly. So basically, this area has average 20 typhoons every year. But these 3 typhoons just came one after another, significantly affected the Takamatsu city area. And this is the photo I was given by a resident on the next day. And then there's still water not receding quite well. And the recorded sea level was 245 centimeters, which was not broken after this, at this time. And this is another photo that I was given by residents. So this is the port area, but you really cannot know the sort of the border between road and ocean. This is the storm surge. And this is the day after the storm surge. You can see tatami mattress were taken up from the houses like this. And so, which means that these houses got inundation. It's not really recognizable from this photo, but there was an older lady behind this rescue guy. And this older lady was rescued the morning after the storm surge hit in this area. But 2 older people were drowned to death during the night. They didn't realize a storm surge. And storm surge and floods and tsunami are so different. Storm surge is probably not very familiar in Australia, but it's very quiet. And suddenly you realize the water is coming up. And it happens along with the tidal change. So you need to know the tide, the high tide and low tide timing. And unfortunately, the high tide time was around midnight this time. So many people were already gone to bed and didn't realize the water was coming up. Yeah, so I made evacuation simulation focusing on this particular area. Not the entire city, but the particularly risky areas. So which probably is 1/3 of the area of Takamatsu City. And the simulation that I used was agent-based model. I explain a bit after this. And I also worked with a marine environment expert to understand how the water comes from the ocean at time of storm surge. And I also show you photos later, but the purpose was not to build a simulation. The main purpose was to show the simulation to the residents and also the government officials to be so that they can use for community planning. What is agents modeling? So agent-based model enables to represent the interaction of different people, basically, and also goods. So if this diagram shows some particular case, but you can represent each one's behavior, and so that you can your simulation will be more realistic because the human behavior is quite complex, and each one has their intention to move or intention to stop, intention to remain. Agent-based model enables this happening simultaneously. And why this is important in evacuation modeling, because we cannot use all the data. Houses that don't used to exist, storm surge that never used to get so high. So the population has more older people. We need to get newest data to do a simulation for to be effective, and also to be applied to the planning. And this is the most tricky one. The people interact with the environment and with one another. For example, if I am moving from my house to the evacuation center, but if I encounter the traffic congestion or flood, then I need to go to a different way. This can be simulated in this model. Or if I am going to move to the evacuation center, but I got call from my friend, and my friend who is not in the particular area, but my friend asking me to pick up their parents together to the evacuation center, I go to a different way. This can be represented in this simulation. So so this is a very powerful model. And before I do the individual simulation, I also studied with the professor of the local university, the tidal movement. Storm surge height is affected by the direction of the wind. And I studied this mechanism and to put it into the model. And we also simulated the tides itself. And then we made a model of estimation, then put into, so we sort of put the estimation into the model as a background information. And this is some settings, all model needs settings. So we use population randomly generated from the census 2015. And then some citizens have cars, but basically they walk. And the only people who could use cars were older people in my simulation. And behaviors, the individuals choose their closest shelter and use the shortest path. And the walking speed was 5 kilometers per hour, and car speeds are 30 kilometers per hour. And we've also put the road network and house and shelters and storm information into the environment side of the model. So I just now ran the simulation. So red dot means pedestrians, and blue dot means cars. And buildings are highlighted yellow, evacuation centers. And I do understand this evacuation center is very close to the river, but this was evacuation center which was set by the government. So I didn't change it. I know it was risky. And the assumption is after the evacuation alert issued, people start to move to the closest evacuation center. And I calculate the time to be taken for whole evacuating residents to finish their evacuation, and also observe the road traffic. And I can zoom in, but not with this video. So but basically, this is how the simulation ran. Yeah, and then the result was for all residents to finish evacuation, it took nearly more than 4 hours. The reason behind it is that some people may evacuate immediately, but some people may take time to collect information, to get together something they would like to bring to the evacuation center, or to contact with their families, or where are you going, or do I need to really evacuate? This kind of conversation may happen among family member, and then they move. And it's typhoon, so it's raining, the wind is blowing massively, so it's not really easy to walk. So you need to get raincoats and stuff, the gumboots, and you need to equip with this weather, and then leave the house. So this may take 30 to 40 minutes for many people. And then walking time to evacuation center may take up to 30, 60 minutes, depending on your ability to walk. And once again, this is not an easy task for all the people. And as a result, we observed that some households did not complete the journey. And this is really consistent with actual fact. Some older people or some people gave up moving in that situation and just stayed home. And this is, again, a risk because you get water in your house, and if you cannot be rescued, it's a very dangerous situation. And also we observed shelter occupancy over time. Fortunately, with this simulation, none of the shelters had 100% people over capacity. So basically, all shelters could accommodate people coming. However, this was before the COVID-19. So if we may require more distancing between people, then we made more space. We cannot have, we may have less people per one shelter. This means we may need more shelters, and we can accommodate all people who are coming. And the simulation, I said that the setting of the simulation was if you go to the shelter, arrive the shelter, but it's already full, you return to a different shelter. So this means that you need to have extra travel to another shelter, which you don't know if you will have a space. So this is, again, a very concerned situation. And I also observed the road congestion. So this colored roads are very much congested. So this means that your speed to get to the shelter will be lower. Then you may take more time while the water level is going up. And so we have been doing a lot of the sort of symposium in local universities showing this result. And also, after we finished simulation, I took to show the neighborhood associations to discuss what they think about the fact and our simulation. And I also did a workshop with residents, and this left side photo was particular conversation with the fire brigades who are in charge of rescuing people or helping people at the time of the floods, and so listen to their experience. Also, I talked to the government officials who are in charge of the disaster prevention operation and got some feedback, but also discussed how we can utilize the simulation results to the future planning. And implication to community planning are like this. So in short term, that we really need to reconsider the location of shelters, which may not be appropriate. And also, for many residents, we found out that they're worried about cars submerged. So what they do is some residents move their cars first to the higher building, like shopping mall, and come back to home and they stay. And this needs to be addressed, really. But people don't think in this way. That's a problem. And also, destination of evacuees, they don't necessarily go to or want to go to their dedicated or closest shelters because they're like, oh no, I don't like that center because they don't have enough toilet, or that shelter doesn't have enough car parking spot, so I would rather go to this one. So we really don't know how people make choice in terms of determining where they go, they choose, which shelter they choose. And also the traffic congestion and could be a problem. If we get more older people in the city in the future, we need to use cars more, and this will create traffic congestion. So we really need to manage how we can help older people to evacuate smoothly. In long term, I think the ultimate question that we got all the time is where we should live. The urban development has been happening in the area where probably they shouldn't do that. And this was also, we observed this case in New South Wales and in Queensland. How much we can actually consider where we should live to avoid the potential risk of floods or bushfire. And we really need to have a appropriate understanding of risk. It's not just about experts, it's about the local residents really need to understand and they communicate what they think about the risk. And for the community, to enhance resilience, these are some points that I would like to raise. The enhancing awareness really leads to enhanced preparedness, but people forget about the experience, past experience, and then do the same thing again. So sometimes we need to have help of governments to be reminded that what sort of environment we are living. And in community level, also we also need to understand what sort of help that we should really have in our community. For example, if my neighbor is older people, okay, I'm gonna help this lady at the time of emergency, this kind of thing. And in the household level, we never know when we will face this emergency time. So maybe I'm at my office, my husband may be in his office, my kids are in school. As a family, how are we gonna do this? So we should really have a conversation beforehand where, okay, so we got the evacuation notice. I'm going to this center because it's close to my office, university. You need to go to this center because it's close to your office, and we can connect, we can text each other after that, but you shouldn't be picking up many family members on the way to your final destination because it's gonna be it's gonna make you in a high risk situation. And once again, the community planning is a long-term work, and many devastated areas are working on this and for preparing for the next disaster. And this cannot be done in a very short time frame. We really need to think the disaster resilience concept, delve into the disaster resilience concept into long-term urban planning. And also what is also important is the social capital. The community ties emerging from sense of belonging. This is social capital and collaboration, sharing resources. So tight-knit communities tend to have strong social capital and tend to be very strong at time of disaster. There was a fact evidence in the case of Kobe earthquake in 1995, the neighborhoods in which residents were less connected and had lower levels of trust suffered more from the impact of disaster. For example, if you don't know where who are living in your neighbor in the next door, you don't know if we should be contacting. We don't know if we need to help. It's knowing each other a bit would be very helpful at the time of disaster. However, Japan has been losing this social capital over the decades because of the more individual lifestyle, and also the nuclear household has become very common. And now we have many one-person households, but including both older people and also younger people not married. How are we gonna construct social capital is a very big challenge in Japanese society, but also I think this is happening in Australian society as well. And also we talk about sustainability, which is the economic and social and environment are the three main pillars. But I would say in terms of community planning, the disaster resilience is the basic need or foundation, and quality of life for people is also very important. But we also need to have social capital here, and also economic and social mutual support to enhance our quality of life. But also we also have more technologies available and helpful in supporting this important element in our lives. So we need to have some sort of connected idea in community planning. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to call for questions or comments from the floor or also online. And if anyone online wants to ask a question, I'm going to ask you to please type it in the chat and we'll read that out to Hitomi. So would anyone like to make a comment or ask a question? Yeah, Bethany.
I've got a few questions because the actual modelling process and is, completely alien to me. So I'm interested in that. But I might start with a slightly different question to begin with. And it's around, I'm interested in, as you've pointed out, that sort of close connectedness of the community and the social capital seems to be really important. Do we know, and I don't know whether your research has looked at this in terms of how people get where they get their information from in terms of what they might do when a natural disaster happens, in terms of where they'll go, who they'll go with, those kind of things. Is it government down? Or is it, are there other ways of getting information? Are there community groups or anything like that? Thanks.
Yeah. So so in Japan, so we got community wireless system. So earthquake, floods, typhoons happen, and then the government thinks that the people need to evacuate. So we got sort of the speakers all across the community, and we get to hear. So even if you don't have a mobile phone, you can hear the information. And the other thing is now when earthquake happened in Japan, your mobile phone will give you a very loud noise and then notify you there was an earthquake. It's a bit scary.
I can imagine. It does. Yes, it sounds scary. And what about, can I just have one, follow up? In terms of what information's provided or where the information comes from before a disaster happens. I mean, obviously you're pointing out that there's a lot of forgetting of what we did before in terms of improving. So has there been much work in terms of sending out communications about what to do in a disaster, and where does that come from?
Yeah, so in Japanese society, there are so-called neighborhood association, and the members, basically all people living in the community are expected to be part of the neighborhood association, and the leader of the neighborhood association goes around all household and make a note of how many people living, and if there's any people who are disabled or vulnerable, and then send it to the council and they keep the record of, and then they also have drills every year like evacuation drills every year. So that's what they do, and they get the fire brigades coming and then give them a lecture on what to do. However, many people, and this is part of the problem, many people decide not to join neighborhood association now, and because it's not mandatory, and it's sort of mandate, but they don't really, many people started not to bother. And this is making this sort of mechanism sort of collapsing at the moment.
Great. All right, thank you. I mean, it's not great. That's terrible that that's happening. But I've got another question, but I'll come back only if we've got time.
Thank you, Hitomi-san. That was really, really good. And I have a page full of questions, but I'm not going to ask them all. The idea of the social grouping, it reminded me just a little bit of experiments or practices in England about loneliness, where they managed to come up with an idea that people who were runners, could visit on their runs other older people or people who couldn't get out the house. So these sort of innovative ways of connecting people into sort of neo-families, which is what I think you really need. I actually had that experience, my wife and I, in Rivet in 2003 in the bushfire situation. Now, we didn't know our neighbors terribly well, but these families formed during the catastrophe. And we literally ate together, made coffee together, went out and searched to see what was happening in the environment. It was really interesting. If somehow you could create that affinity before, it's an interesting idea. The other thing is, just in terms of names, it seems to me that seeing this as a response to a catastrophe might be a little bit wrong. In a sense, this is the normal now.
Yes.
You can't see it as something that is exceptional. This is to be expected. When I lived in London, the first year I was there, and it snowed, the entire underground system seemed to close down, which struck me was that they didn't really accept that it snowed in London, and yet it's been doing that for 1,000 years and more. So thank you. And if any comments in terms of the Neo family?
Neo family, yes. So I think that was really interesting that you shared your the what happened after bushfire, and this happens naturally, yes, which is wonderful. And people help to each other, but if I think that and that if you can do this is great, but if you cannot do it's a problem. That's what we have been. I was heard from the government official in Japan. Because depending on nature of the disaster, if it's and I'm particularly talking about earthquake, if your house, the next house collapsed, if you don't know who is there, the rescue may take time. Or ultimately, if you know where the person is sleeping in the house, it will minimize the time to rescue. So that's the ultimate situation. And in the past in Japan, like 100 years, 150 years, this has been happening, but not anymore. And so floods, typhoons, we have alerts 3 or 4 days before, so we can prepare. But the disaster like earthquake, tsunami, that's a more challenge. And knowing each other is more helpful in this situation.
Okay, we've got a comment online. This is from Ronnie Aliff. Thanks so much, Hitomi, for your wonderful work and your presentation today. I have so many comments and questions, both as a PhD candidate from FAD at UC, but more from my position in the post-bushfire recovery space in Cobargo, New South Wales, and as project lead for the construction of the Cobargo Bushfire Resilience Centre. I'm interested in understanding where things may overlap between your research in Japan and what's happening in Australia around evacuation simulations, community and social capital. Yes, I know that's large and vague question.
Yes, thank you. I did actually a bushfire simulation using similar model in the South Coast. And the interesting thing to me, and this could be the interesting thing was in terms of bushfire, I was talking with the planner at the Eurobodara Council. Depending on the type of material that used for building house, the impact was very different. And so to me, this simulation is not just about the wind speed and also the direction of the fire. It's also about each building's type and materials. And I thought that was interesting, but that's very challenging for me because sometimes it's very difficult to get the data for simulating exactly what sort of material and are used in each building. And so that's about simulation. Evacuation, Australia in particular, the regional Australia, there are not many laws that you can use for evacuation. And that is, I think, a problem or challenge. I had a chat with a personnel in Army a while ago. For evacuation, the most efficient way is to have rather than everyone driving their own cars, you have a relatively bigger car, bring everyone to one particular place effectively. But in regional area, the roads that have that capacity is very limited, and this will create traffic congestion anyway. And I think that is a challenge in Australia.
Hitomi, I want to ask you a question.
Yes.
The future you've painted for the world in general is well, it's quite stark. It's increasingly aged population, increasing necessity for disaster management. It's hard to see a great future for capitalism, specifically in that scenario.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, are you seeing the marketers playing a role in the sort of mechanisms you've outlined, or is that necessarily something that devolves upon the state?
Sorry,
Is that necessarily the state that the elected governments who will be running all the sorts of operations you're referring to?
No, I don't think it's possible. The governments are also very in lack of resources in the future. So that's going to be very challenged. So that's why it's very challenging. So residents should help each other where they can, not 100% rely on the government officials to help them. So, but this is also, again, the adaptive capacity is about this. It's very, very difficult.
Well,
Yeah,
I'm getting at,
yeah.
It seems to me that economic transformation would be part of the picture, surely.
Yeah. And also, there has been discussion around using autonomous cars for evacuation, but for this technology to be actually implemented in a real situation, we need to wait for a bit for a while. But there has been an experimental city is being developed in Japan at the moment. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments or questions? Okay, well, please join me in thanking Hitomi for this fascinating.